Alright. Let's turn on the chat. Turn on the humidifier. Excuse me, essential oil diffuser. And looks like everything's up and running. Oh.
Why do you need this chat? Why can't you use that chat?
This one allows it to show up on the screen. That's all.
Interesting.
There's other reasons to have it, but they're not relevant right now. Alright, cool. So we got the chat up. Alright, so let's get going here.
No one's watching.
That's okay. People will show up. One thing you're gonna get, I'll let you know right now, baby. One thing to get comfortable with as a YouTuber is that no one's watching.
I know. But every time they come in, every time someone comes in, they're always like, "What are we?"
I know.
Camera over.
Oh. Use your words, all right? So, what have you been working on today?
Notes and restarting my menu from scratch.
On your portfolio project, right?
Yeah, my portfolio project. So that's what I've been doing. I've been reading lots of codes and descriptions and stuff like that on a horizontal menu. So
good.
I feel like it's all new. I was actually writing in my vlog or writing in my journal, in my 100-day journal thing for this, and I was talking about how nervous I am about how I feel how like behind I am, even though I'm just starting. I feel already really behind. So it's scary and overwhelming, and I hope that I'll pull forward enough where I feel like I can actually start like sprinting forward. That would be nice.
Yeah, it takes a while to get into the rhythm. I mean, you're only 6 days in, really, minus the 3 weeks of kind of prep work.
Well, the HTML, you asked me to lay out anything in HTML. I'm very confident that I'd be able to do it without even looking to references. So I'm happy about that. That's what I've mostly been working on in Code Academy. So in CSS, like I pretty much know how, like, whatever HTML code I know how to write, I know CSS to back it up to at least make it function or look pretty or something like that. So
Well, good. All right, so
it's just the rest of us that we're learning right now. I'm like overwhelmed.
well, the good part is that's normal. So
That's the good part.
You haven't really done any coding yet.
No.
In
I know.
JavaScript's
That's scary.
JavaScript's the coding part.
Yeah.
Not to say that HTML and CSS aren't important, but JavaScript's the coding part. It's your first real language, and I guess don't be afraid if it's hard. It's supposed to be hard, but that's also why people get paid good money to do it, because it is hard.
I just don't want to struggle with it. It's not that I don't want to struggle with it, because I know that's part of learning, but I don't want to struggle with it so much to the point where I feel like I can't do it.
Well, the good thing is you got a boyfriend who's the coding god sometimes and the coding turd sometimes. So it'll help you. But all right, let's continue on with our functions example that we've been working on. Last time we were talking about parameters and passing those in and things like that. So we have this console log function. Remember we said that we could have value. We could pass. Remember, these are parameters. They also can be referred to as arguments. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So parameters, arguments, all kind of the same. Now, we're going to create our own function here called function with args. And remember, when we create a function, we use the function keyword, and then we call it function with args, and we pass in a couple of parameters. I'm just going based off the instructions here. It accepts 2 arguments, which is 2 parameters, and we can call this arg1 and arg2. It outputs the sum to the dev console. So all we want to do, remember console.log will output that data. Remember how we pulled up the inspector and all that? And so we can add these numbers together. So we have arg1 plus arg2. This will allow us to console log the 2 values. And we can do this as many times as we want because we're writing it as a function. And so we can test this. We can test it by calling function with args and passing in a couple numbers. Give me 2 numbers, maybe.
7 and 9.
So 7 plus 9 is 16. And let's go ahead and bring up the inspector. And when we run our test, we're going to get a couple things, but we're also going to get our 16. So you can see that everything's working. We don't really need to see that for each one because it's pretty straightforward at this point. Now things are gonna get a little more complicated. So we're gonna be talking about scope. What scope refers to is how things run, how the order in which things go. So your code knows what's supposed to go before what based off of the scope. And an example of that would be if we declare it's kind of like nesting. And the farther you are outside the nest, the more important you are and the sooner you get instantiated. And the sooner your event happens. Mm-hmm. So we have this var keyword, remember? And if we declared the scope here and we said var name equals Dylan, and we wanted to print that name in here, down here, that would make sense because it's in the same scope as this. But if we went to down here and we just declared a variable called var name is Dylan, and then we tried to outside of these bracket scopes without calling the function.
You mean inside?
I'm saying the inside this works because it's within that scope. This is called function scope. And variables get raised to the function level, which means like this goes to the top of what's inside here and it can be used. That you're not getting it? Alright, okay, so let's start with global scope. Global scope means that you can use the function anywhere you want. A good example of that
Doesn't the... Okay. Isn't there already like an order in which everything is processed?
Yes, and this is part of that because it gets more complex. But scope is, we've been working with like one scope so far, just global. And so in that case, when there's just the one scope, it just goes line by line by line.
From one to whatever.
Yeah, it just goes top to bottom. Now it still goes top to bottom. It just, where these exist, this variable, it only exists within the fun1 function. It doesn't exist outside of it. So if we wanted to, right here, say console.log name, we would get undefined, even though it's within the fun1 function because we never actually called it, we never returned it, anything like that. Because it only exists here in the function scope. While if we declared it outside of it, we would actually get Dylan because this is in the global scope.
So how would you call it inside the scope?
Well, this would be a bad example to do that. But like if we had it in here and we wanted to get that name variable, what we would do instead is we would return name, and then right here we would call to access that. Because remember, it's just a function. We can call the function, and then it'll output it.
So what would you use a specific scope for? Why wouldn't you just use global scope?
Well, one, things get messy, and sometimes you only need them in certain areas. Two, because we haven't been introduced to some more advanced concepts yet, but scope is one way that that programming has set up for your code to run in the correct order sometimes, and things to have the correct values. And usually it's separated with brackets and things like that. It goes top to bottom, but it goes by brackets within that top to bottom. So if we have, in this case, an if statement, which it looks like we're jumping into right now, if statements are, it basically takes whatever's in here and finds out if it's true. If it's true, you run what's in the if statement scope. If it's false, you just ignore it. So nothing would happen. Does that make sense? Are you still...
Well, I understand it all. I like no exam. I don't know. Okay. I mean, yeah. I hear what you're saying. And it's very English-like, so
so
it's just new. It's
yeah,
just new.
That's fine. All right. So we're going to declare a global variable. Now, we'll follow the example a little bit, and it'll make a little bit more sense. So it's going to be called myGlobal, and it's going to be equal to a value of 10. So this global variable, because it's global, meaning we can use it anywhere, it has global scope is like the top scope. It's available to be used everywhere.
Okay.
Now, since it's available here, we can actually use it in the functions because we've already defined it globally. Good morning, Godless Monkey, and Heke Nolerak. Welcome. So that's our global scope. So when we run this, we didn't declare oops global, but because it's global, these functions have access to it. You see how we're just passing the variables in here?
Mm-hmm.
My global. And let's go ahead and declare the oops global.
Oops global.
Oh, excuse me. So the oops global is the mistake global where we're setting equal to 5. Now you'll see that this won't actually be able to be added to it because it's within the scope of the fun1 function and not in the scope of the fun2 function. Does that make sense? Because it exists here, it doesn't exist here yet.
Okay. But why does one call on it then? The second if statement.
To show you that it doesn't work, basically. To explain to you. That's why it's called oops global. OPS.
You didn't put any spaces? Maybe it needs to be
No.
reset.
Yeah, so the point of that was to show you that it doesn't work, but apparently they want you to declare it outside to get it to actually work. They kind of instruct you to do it within there.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Oh, I see what they want to show you. So this is awful convention. This needs to be taken out. So, you know how we create variables like this? And this is in the global scope, and that's why it gets the global value. There's another awful thing that you should never do, that we could create oops global like this and set it equal to 5. Now, you normally would do this if you're reassigning the value, right? There's no var keyword in it. So if this has never been created anywhere else, what's going to happen is it's going to create it, and it's going to automatically assign a global scope to it. Don't ever do this. It's bad coding convention. But that's what they wanted to show you, and that will work in here, because we're creating this for the first time here without a var keyword, and it's assigning a global scope to it.
Hmm. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Because you have no way of knowing if it is a global variable, unless as your code gets more complex, you'd have no way of knowing. It would just look like you're reassigning the value.
Okay.
Because right now we're dealing with 15 lines of code. We have about 50,000 lines of code in my current project.
What, you can't look through all of those 50 lines to see if
50,000 lines of code? I've written probably about 15,000 of it, which is a lot. And I could tell you right now that I don't know the majority of the other 35. You know what I mean? So it gets up there. And you're working with other developers, they're not going to know every line of your code as well. Alright, so local scope functions. Now, we were talking about global scope, and then we were also talking about the scope within here. That's called local scope. A book called A Smarter Way to Learn JavaScript. Alright, well, I'll check it out, man. So declare a local variable inside my var inside my local scope. Alright, so var my var, var my var. And so what's happening here is when we call this function, it's going to print it out, right? We set it equal to, I don't know, 10. It's going to print that number out. However, if we just call console.log my var, it doesn't exist in this scope. It exists in the local scope here.
Why would you? Okay. Or is it just showing you that that's how it works?
Yes. What the fuck is going on here? Oh, remove this. Alright, there we go. Silly directions, you gotta read them sometimes. Alright, so we've talked about global scope and local scope. And so the local scope can get more and more nested, and global is always the farthest one out.
So you can have more than one local scope?
Yeah, and I'll show you an example. If we do an if statement and pretend there's something in there, and we create a variable here called temp1, and then that exists for every scope that's nested within its local scope. So its local scope is between here, and if we had another if nested in it, and another if nested in it, we'd be able to use temp1 anywhere within it. However, we would not be able to use temp1 in the global scope or the temp or the above it, anywhere outside of it.
Okay.
Essentially. That's not.
Can you run scopes at the same time?
What do you? What?
Like you can have a global scope and multiple local scopes together?
Yes, there's the way that yes. I won't try and confuse it, but yes, more.
I'm scared of the rest of that answer.
Well.
No, let's just leave it at yes.
You just want to leave it at yes? Alright, cool. So, what we're trying to do here is, it is possible for both local and global variables with the same name. However, you should never do this. This is bad convention.
You mean bad practice?
Whatever. So here we have... What did I do? Let's reset this. Alright, so... locally, we could go ahead and create this variable here called the same thing as this. And so what would happen is we could set this equal to, I don't know, jacket.
It's supposed to be sweater.
Is it a sweater? Alright, thank you. So sweater. And so what's happening here is these are both the same variables. This is bad convention. But this one only exists in the local scope here.
And one's a global.
One's the global.
So technically they're different scopes.
Yes.
Different variables.
Yes. Well, it depends. Yes. Yes. So we've talked about how to return statements before, or return a parameter or an argument. We've seen that. What is it on here? Times 5. So we're going to write a function that times things by 5. So your function times 5.
Why do you have to write it out and then put the number?
What do you mean?
Like it says write it out and then put the number 5.
Because it takes in a... Oh. Because we're creating a function, and then we're passing in a parameter that we call num. So, in this case, when it takes in a parameter of 5, when we call the function, with that one parameter, it needs to return 25. So, return whatever number we pass into it times 5. That's what this function does. And so when we call it, when we call function, when we call times 5, when we pass in a number 5, what's happening here is we are taking in our single parameter 5, which is the argument num here. Or this is the argument, or the parameter, whatever you want to call it. And then it's actually going to return 25. That's what this is doing here. Does that make sense? Why do I feel like you're not grasping this today?
I'm grasping. It's just all new. This is what I was telling you. I was like, you know, because I'm learning a bunch of like vocabulary words that I don't have memorized yet, and I don't know how they work. Like, so I'm having a hard time, you know, internalizing it.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. So we've talked about this before, where a number returns a value, right? And oftentimes we may store that into another variable. So you'll see an example here. They have changed num, and what it does is it takes that parameter, adds 5 to it, and then divides it by 3. So in this case, that would be 15, right? 10 plus 5 divided by 3 would then return 5. So what we're doing is we're taking this change value that we set to 0, and we're now setting it equal to 5. And we're calling the function, and that return value is what it's getting.
Yes, it is. I was saying that earlier when we first started streaming. I was like, I'm writing a blog of all this, and just like yesterday was just so overwhelming. And then I'm going over the code myself, and it's just so overwhelming. And going over all this, it's like I learn a very specific way, so like I have to fill in the holes and work with it, and you know, hopefully that'll work. Or, you know, there's the worst side where I'm just too stupid to get it all together.
That's not the case. What's going to happen is we're going to reprogram how you see things, and you're going to start thinking a little bit more similar to me at the end of the day.
Oh, thank God. At least I'll understand you at some point.
That's what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the heat.
Yeah.
I got him with an if-then argument joke the other day.
Yeah. April April's starting. April and I were in the car, and we're really arguing. We're having a debate, and she's like, "There's no foundation to your argument, thus it is null." And she thought she was hot shit. Fucking
No, he was trying to tell me off about like, oh well, my watchers don't think I overwork, and I was like, well, you know, the comparison of how much they work to how much you work, we don't know what that looks like, so your argument is undefined, thus it's null. So, hot shit.
Hey, big boy. All right, so anyhow, we are now able to return those values and store them in variables. And there's various reasons why that could happen. Maybe we actually need to pass this value into another function to get another answer.
Nope. Nothing. It hit the wall and it just nothing stuck.
All right, one example. Let's take the calculator again. So this is our add function. We'll say it is. So we add the first two numbers and then we divide. When we hit that divide, we have to take whatever number we have and put it into a variable that we're going to pass into the divide function.
Okay. Okay.
So that would be a basic example. All right. So we have this process arg number here, and what we want to do is we want to take process, this function, this variable, and we want to get the value that we're going to pass into it. So we're going to say process is equal to the return of process arg, and we want it to be equal to 2. So in this case, if we pass in 7, it'll return 2. And so what's happening is this function's running, and it's being set.
So if you're making a calculator, would you have to lay out all the variables of a calculation?
You would set your code up in a way that it does that.
Okay, so you wouldn't have to lay it out by hand. You could lay out like a function where it'll process it that way.
You would set up a loop. We haven't got to loops yet, but there's something called a for loop and a while loop. And what would happen is that list that we had, it would run for each item that's in there until there wasn't any more. And then based on what it was, it would add, divide, multiply, subtract, so on and so forth. Okay?
You guys can't see it, but the big butterball is in Dylan's lap. And he's so happy. You can tell because like he's like laying up on his back hind, so he feels like he's supposed to be there, and he's a little cautious at the same time. So he's just super excited to be in his lap right now because normally he gets kicked out.
Yeah. It's too hot to sit in my lap lately. All right. Anyhow.
He's trying to conform to his lap as much as possible so that he can stay.
Sorry, I'll let you stay for a little bit, Milo. All right. So in computer science, the queue is an abstract data structure where items are kept in order. New items can be added to the queue and all items are taken off. Write a function next in the line which takes an array and a number of items as arguments. Add the number to the end of the array, then move the first element to the array. Add the number to the end of the array, then remove the first element of the array. Alright, so what we want to do, the instructions here are we have this function here. The instructions are we're going to take in an array, and then we're taking a single number that we're going to add to the array, and then we're going to the end of the array, and then we are going to remove the first item of the array. So now we're going to have to use some of those functions that we use. And so
the
push adds it to the end. Good. So how would we add it to the array that we're passing in? we would, remember this is our test array.
What? You didn't finish the question.
Yeah, that's we're gonna use push, right? So this R is our array, right? When we're adding it.
Oh, okay. When you say R, I'm waiting for you to finish the word.
No, all right. So the array dot push. This is how we would add it. Oops. This is how we would add it to the array. And what is it that we're adding? The item that we're passing in.
So 6.
Yeah, let's say it was 6. And so we'd push item. So this gets added to the array.
Okay.
The end of the array. Now, how do we remove the first item from the array? Is that what it says? Add the number to the end of the array, then remove the first element of the array.
I forget what it's called.
It's shift.
Shift. I don't know why I kept thinking it started with a Q. I was like, Q. Shift.
And then, no, pop removes the end. Godless monkey. We're trying to remove the beginning. It might be unshift. I always get them confused. I don't oftentimes add things to the front of arrays.
It's unshift if you're trying to remove it.
Are you
from
sure?
the front. Shift should just push it over.
You think it's unshift? All right. And
We'll find out.
and what we want to do is return the element that was removed. So how would we do that?
You want to return the item that's removed?
Yes.
Well, what's the point in removing it then if you're just going to return it?
To see what is getting removed. Make sure it's working properly. Stop trying to think about why we're doing this. This is all an example.
I need whys!
This is all an example. Just accept it. All right? So we would what? What would we do to get this value? We would set it equal to a variable. Because just like this is just a function getting called on something. And so we could set a variable. Var removed equals that. And we could return removed. So we add the item to the array. We remove the first item. One second. I think you got me confused here on unshift and shift.
Sorry.
It's alright. It's not your fault. I should know. Yeah, I was right. It's shift. So shift.
How does that even make sense?
That's probably why I find it a little ass backward. There we go. So the goal here was to add an item to the array, and you remembered that was push, good. Then we wanted to remove the first item, and we can do that by storing the value and then we wanted to return the value that we removed. So what we did here was we called a function, we passed in an array with an item that we were going to add. We added it using push, the array function push. We removed the first item using the array function shift. And then we stored it in a variable to make sure that we were removing the correct value, and we returned it.
I'm just gonna trust you. That is what just happened.
It's nothing's new there. We're just kind of putting it together now. Do you see? So what you're gonna get?
I understand the shift part, and yeah, I think it's because this is the first time I've seen it work together, right?
Yeah. So this is all, and everything that you're going to be learning in Free Code Camp up until you get to the algorithm section is syntax and how things work. When you really start to become a developer, what you're going to have to do is start to figure out how you can take these tools and now make it do stuff.
Let's just get to that part. Oh, by the way, is there a way to make flashcards for these things?
Flashcards?
Yeah.
Why do you need flashcards?
Because that's what I want to learn.
You can make your own flashcards.
Yeah.
Would you guys want flashcards for JavaScript? Because I am building a store, and I've been looking for a unique item to do such a thing.
Because, well, the only reason why I like flashcards is because when I was in college, when we had to like learn massive amounts of information within a certain amount of time to either write a paper or pass a test, and I'm about to like go through all this and then hit algorithms. It's like if I don't have those internalized by the time I hit algorithms, I'm going to be going back and forth.
That's part of it, though.
I don't like that, though. I think it would be easier and quicker to be able to actually have those and be able to flip through them myself, because I'll know where they are. I'll know that because I wrote them or I studied them. I've had them tangibly in my hands. I'm going to make flashcards, motherfucker.
I hope you do, baby. I have nothing against you. Yeah, I just haven't. I'm sure they're out there. They've got to be out there. All right. So we'll check out the book. Did you write the book down?
We'll see. I like to overdo it. Did I what?
Write that book down. That's all right. I can go back and watch the video.
A smarter way to learn GS.
Yeah.
GS.
All right. So what are booleans? Do you remember?
True or false?
True or false values. Now, one thing that not to be confused is it's just true or false. You don't use quotes with it.
Who said that you did?
I'm just saying that's what there is an example here. So it's just a true or false value. Well, all right, Miss OG over here. All this shit. I don't know. You don't use quotes.
Boolean!
All right, so.
Oh, yeah. I was just about to ask you if you knew the author.
Alright, so modify the welcome boolean function so that it returns true instead of false when the run button is clicked. So here, all we're doing is we are saying return true.
Welcome to Booleans. Is that true? Yes, it is. It's a late joke. Whoever wrote that has a good sense of humor.
Alright.
Dry, but it's good.
Alright, so now we're gonna be taking it up a notch. Alright. Milo, you gotta go, buddy. You're too hot. Come on. Go on, get. No.
Come over to mama.
Milo.
Come on.
No, buddy.
Boy, he wants your lap.
Right.
Come in.
Daddy's gotta work. Alright. Ow. Come on, buddy. Go to mom.
Baby. Ooh, I want to play with you.
Alright, so. Conditional logic.
Sorry, he's purring so loud.
Alright, so now we're getting into kind of one more step up than where we were before. If statements. If statements are called conditions or conditional logic. And what that means is it only runs if whatever you put in here returns true.
Okay.
So if we were to change it to, like, is it true? We're passing in a value. So true, if true, and true obviously is true, right? It's going to return, yes, it's true. And it's not going to ever hit this. So once a function hits its return value,
okay,
the function's done. It doesn't do anything else.
Oh, I thought functions could just
but you have to call it again. What I'm saying is that if this is true, this will run.
Okay.
But because it's a return statement, it's never going to get to here unless it's false. It's not going to do them both.
When would it ever be false?
If we change this to false. That's why we don't have to do another if statement, because if it's true, it's going to hit this. If it's false, it's not going to run that. And then it's going to return here.
Okay.
All right? Now,
So, like... Okay. I was going to say, what's an example of that?
I flip a quarter. If it's heads, say, hey, it's heads. Return heads. If it's false, or in that case, tails, if it being tails is a true statement, return tails. It's only going to return one. When it's only if an if statement, it's going to hit one or the other.
Okay.
Or it's going to... You can hit multiple if statements. It's the return that makes it only do it once. You can only hit a return once, and then it will break the function. Not like break the code, but it'll exit you out of the function.
Okay.
And it'll run on to the next function.
Yeah, because you completed it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It got its value. You can only return the one.
Okay.
Hey, Big Papa. You're lucky this is a fun live stream video, Milo. Or Daddy'd kick you out. Alright, buddy. Alright, so let's go ahead and work on our true or false conditional function right now. Let's take a full advantage.
So cute. I know.
I actually have a picture of Milo up on my MySpace. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, really?
That's how long we've had this guy. Yeah, she's getting there, man. We're moving fast, and she's working on the JavaScript stuff as well. All right, all right, yeah, just come back in the lab. You're less of a pain in the ass. All right. So we are going to create an if statement that returns yes, that was true if the parameter was true, or no, that was false. So in here, what we're going to do is say, create an if. We're saying if true, run this code. If not, don't. And we're passing a single value, which is our parameter, was that true? And in it, we just want to return a string that says, yes, that was true. And then outside of it, we'll write it right here. Turn. No, it was. No, that was false. All right. Does that make sense? If this is true, this runs. The function stops. If it's false, it checks to see the value. It's false, nothing happens, and then it goes and runs that line, a code, and the function ends.
Okay, do these have scopes in them too?
Yes. So this is the local scope is basically where your code is when it runs. And so there's scopes associated with it. There's scopes for everything. Why do you need the second return statement if it's at the end of the function? You need the return statement because it's returning the value. Now, we could console log the value, but we're not necessarily trying to print the value. Maybe we're setting it to a variable, which is why we're returning it. Otherwise, we just have a value floating around that we're not doing anything with. So it's just what they're asking in terms of this exercise. But there's scope throughout all of everything. Alright. Alright, so comparison with the equality operator. So we're going to be working with a lot of equals right now. So
you can use double equals to see if two things are the same. One equals assigns value, and double equals checks to see if they're equal to each other. So an example would be 1 double equals to 1 is true. Right? 1 is equal to 1. Now, is 1 double equals to 2? No, it's false. Now, alright, so this is going to get slightly confusing. So there is a type and there is a value. The type would be something like string, boolean, number, all those variable types. And the value is what it's equal to. So with double equals, all we care about is the value. So if number 1 is equal to string 1, double equals the string 1, it's true. Because we care about the value. Now if it's triple equals, there's another level up. It's checking for type and it's checking for value. So that would return false if it's triple equals.
I just tried to ask you that. Okay.
Alright, and so same thing with string is equal to. So in our example here, we're going to return when the val is equal to 12. So we want to say, hey, if val, and so we can do this in our if statement to get a true or false value. So it's not just true or false. It's evaluating that and returning a true or false value associated with that. So if the value is equal to 12, so if that's a true statement, return equal, else return not equal. You should use, I did use the fucking double equal operator. Oh. Alright, buddy. Just gonna refresh this and see if it's something in here. Yeah, something being weird. Okay, cool. So, basically what we just talked about. So we were talking, the technical name, is that something particular to JavaScript, or do other languages equate numbers to strings if the values are the same? This is something that's pretty unique to JavaScript. JavaScript has always had a very unique way of equality and variable setting compared to most languages. So if you're working with languages like Java, for instance, you actually, before you even create a variable, you, instead of creating like var some variable is equal to 2, the number 2, you would actually have to define what type it is in Java. So it would be something like var, and depending on how large the number is, you would have there's 5 or 6 different number types. And it depends, like you couldn't even create an integer without, you'd have to create var int some int name is equal to 2, and if you actually said var int some int name is equal to 2.1, it would actually just drop the 0.1 off. So the types in JavaScript, the type and value system in JavaScript is very loose compared to most languages. Does that make sense?
I don't know. You lost me at ant.
Alright, I use the restroom and then we'll talk for the next 10 minutes.
Yeah, so it's not smoke. It's a humidifier, and Dylan uses it a lot after I got him hooked on it. Why did I give you a humidifier?
The essential oil diffuser?
Yeah.
So I believe I was sick at the time. I believe I had the flu or I had a fever or something, and it was one of the things where you were trying to make me feel better, and I actually really just liked it at that point.
Which is rare because I am like the worst gift giver for Dylan.
So this is actually what well I should all right. We'll do a little story time. So one thing. That question is more what programming language should I learn? You should learn JavaScript. That's always what you should learn.
And when he says JavaScript, the mean stack.
Yeah. April, I'll never forget this. The very first gift April bought for me, she was super excited about it. And
shit.
And she was like hyping me up about it for a long time, right? And so she's like, "Oh, you're gonna love it, this and that." And this is probably like the first year we've been seeing each other, somewhat early on. And so she's like super excited about it. I'm like getting a little hyped up, and she's really eager about it. And so I open it and I put on like the best game face it was, but it was a set of like knives, like a $40 set of knives
that he needed because I threw out his other one.
Yeah, she didn't like the knife set I had. I thought they were fine, and she's like, "Yeah, now we can get rid of the ones that you have."
6 years later, I'm still hearing about this shit. Well, you shouldn't have thrown out my knives.
The knives she got were shit too. They rusted after a year.
Yeah, they were terrible. If I remember what kind of knives those were, I think it was like cavemen or something like that. Stay away from those fuckers.
But I was like, I already have a knife set. Why would you? And I know we used to do a lot of cooking, and I know she knew that I had a knife set. So when she gave it to me, she was just basically telling me my knives are shit. Here are some better knives. Slowly, all my stuff has gone.
I have gotten better at gift giving. I got you some kick-ass shoes.
She did get me some kick-ass shoes. There's something other.
Those were some expensive-ass shoes, but they were worth it because he still wears them to this day. So,
yeah.
And a blanket. What else have I got? Shirts.
Mark Harris says, "I know JavaScript. Where can I learn React.js for real?"
Yeah, I got shirts for it.
So there's 2 courses on Codecademy with React.js. I suggest you take them and just start trying to rebuild some of the free Codecamp projects with it. That's when I was learning React. That's how I got started. She's gonna start buying me clothes. Yeah, I know, man.
So the only type of clothes I do buy him are shirts, like screen tees, because everything else, I don't know his taste.
It's hard being this stylish, boys. Let me tell you.
He has more clothes than I do.
That's not true.
That's true.
Maybe it might be true.
It is like double what I have, and I don't know.
I get a lot. My shirts.
Maybe triple.
My shirts
triple
are like
now.
$7.
Because every time we go somewhere, he buys a shirt, and maybe pants.
Pants? I don't have that.
He has
many
more
pants.
underwear than I do. I think we have the same amount of shoes now, but
What? No, get the fuck out of here. I wear 1 pair of shoes. I may have 3, but I wear 1. You're crazy. All right. So let's get back on coding. This is supposed to be a coding channel. What are you working on the next couple hours?
this. I'm just gonna go back and keep taking notes. I'm gonna look into maybe formatting some flashcards for myself, and I'm gonna just keep going from where I'm at with the portfolio. I don't know if you guys heard in the beginning, but I'm scratching my whole portfolio that you guys saw previously, and I'm gonna do a new one using a more something that's more logical.
Standard.
Something
more standard.
Standard. So I'm gonna be learning how to do the standard. What is it? Horizontal menu. So for my portfolio page, and so that I'm not too overwhelmed with my portfolio page, I'm gonna break it up into sections. So first I'm gonna do my menu, and then maybe my backdrop, and then maybe put in the elements for, you know, the placeholders for, what are those called? Fucking icons for the examples, whatever the my story is for it. And I'm just going to break it into sections and not try to overwhelm myself too much with it. So that is my thing. And then probably blog about all this, how insecure I am about it all. But yeah, I mean, just it's not a lot. I don't feel like I'm doing a lot physically, but mentally I can feel my brain like scrambling. Like I'm dreaming about coding now. So that's been horrifying because all my shit breaks.
It's part of the process. You gotta break some code to fix some code. You guys have any last questions before we round up our 1 hour session for the day? Oh, by the way, if you want to support the channel, I'm trying to raise money for to upgrade our content to 4K. So you can donate, you can join Patreon, all that sort of stuff if you want to do that. I'm trying to get a 4K monitor, 4K webcam, all that sort of stuff, so that we can put out better quality and do that. Yeah. But if you haven't already, make sure to join our Facebook page, Code Tech and Caffeine, or Facebook group, I should say. The link is in the description. By the way, we are growing. I don't know if everybody here is a member or not, but we're over 1,300 people right now. What do you enjoy most about coding so far, baby?
I would say two things. I really think coding is a miraculous discovery. In fact, the whole discovery of internet has just been fucking amazing for us millennials to be growing in it. So I think I watch endless YouTube videos about what is the internet, packages, and fucking, you know, all the things that the internet uses and how it goes from one place to the next, and fiber and cables and where it's all located in the United States and across the world. Like, that shit is just amazing. And the fact that, like, you can manipulate it and talk to it and integrate with it, something that you can't, like, tangibly have, but it's there, like, it's physical, and we found it, and this shit is just so cool.
We didn't really find it as much as invented it. It wasn't like someone left it and we're like, oh, this shit's great.
Well, I mean, you had to discover pieces of it, and then when they put it together and they made the internet. I mean, it pre-existed. We didn't just, like, make it out of thin air.
The internet?
Yeah.
No, someone invented it. The military invented it.
No, okay, I get they invented it, but I mean, everything that is used to have invented it was already there.
Yeah, okay. Alright, yeah.
It's like saying, hey, the atom bomb, we invented it, but we had to find the atoms and the bomb parts first. And then we put it together and made an atom bomb.
It wasn't like there was a bunch of raw supplies laying around to make the
No,
internet.
it took someone very intelligent to figure it out and be like, ah!
Yeah.
I got it.
So what Git GUI do I use? I use two different ones. I use the GitHub desktop application, and I also use Tortoise Git. I like Tortoise Git better, to be honest with you. If you're looking for something to use, I'd suggest that.
How are you enjoying learning this, April? Yeah, so I was talking about this earlier with Godless Monkey. That it's overwhelming. I want to enjoy it, and I look forward to the day that I'm thoroughly enjoying it with a smile on my face, perhaps when I'm making a check after coding. No, I'm enjoying it because I know what it's going to look like for me long term, and my future doesn't look bleak, so that's cool.
That was the most depressing shit I have ever fucking heard right now. It was like, woo. You know, I ain't really. All I heard is, I'm not enjoying this shit at all. But hey, it may pay the bills one day, so whatever. It's gonna look, maybe I'll be honest with you. It's gonna take you a second to get in the groove, cause you're.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Like, it's gonna take me a second to get in the groove. I'm a writer first, so when you guys ask me something, I'm very deep and very, multiple directions and examples, and I'm all over the place because as a writer, I'm not just trying to be one person. I'm trying to be hundreds of thousands of characters, and that's just how my brain is in general. So that's why I kind of geared towards writing in the first place, because that's just how I've always been able to write. So writing like a nonfiction book with multiple characters and all that stuff, like that's already in there. So trying to think as one person logically towards one direction is going to be a task for me. So that's why all these things are all over the place, So, and that's why I'm kind of all over the place. But I'm looking forward to learning and being able to think in this manner, so that I can argue with Dylan on his level playing field and beat him.
You can try. All right. We'll end it on that, guys. Thank you for watching. See you guys tomorrow for day 7.
Do a tutorial on Get April. Will benefit from it.
There might be such a
Christ.
tutorial coming. It might. Once this is healed, guys, I promise a Get tutorial. I've been holding off on coding and kind of working on other things in the meantime. But thank you.
I don't even know what Get is. What's Get?
It's version control. Version control is where multiple people can work on the same stuff, and you can commit your files to like a folder, and then you'll have access to the changed code I worked on, and I'll have access to what you worked on.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But alright, guys, thank you for watching. See you next time. Join the Facebook group. Send me money on Patreon. I'll see you guys next time.
Code long and prosper.
Code long and prosper.